Kristin. Yes, we are live and the door is open and we have Bill Moore. Bill's come in from New York City. It's great to have you with us again, Bill. And Helene, so great to see you here, Helene. Thanks for coming. So yes, we're live and all relaxed and ready to go.
That's my cousin.
Oh, your cousin?
Yeah.
Hi, Elle. Kristin's cousin. So I'm Jennifer Jones from Tracking Down the Family, and I'd like to welcome you all to Behind the Publication. I've been in a bit of a state of excitement today as over here in Australia, it's the last day of the month and last day of April, and that's the last day for the April A to Z challenge, where I've been posting a post every day for 30 days, 26 days, because we don't post on Sundays. So it's very exciting to hit that last day, and it's all done and all the hard work and the busyness of it is over. So, but now to get to, yes, but the excitement now is for Behind the Publication. Who have we here? We have Kyla, our genealogy librarian from Texas. Hi, Kyla, and Kathy Stone from Calgary, and Bill, a second hello to Bill. Yes. So it's great to have you all here. And I have a wonderful guest for you today. But before I introduce you to Kristin, I might just tell you a little bit about what Behind the Publication is, because this is just our second episode. So this series was just a little inkling of an idea that I had when I found myself reading, Substack posts and wanting to know more about the research that might have gone on behind them. That was it, really. I just wanted to know more, not so much about the story, about the research. And also, I think you all know the experience of meeting up with another family historian, and you find yourself able to talk for hours and hours and hours, not about them, about, the work they're doing and their research and what they're writing. And yes, so this series isn't a dive into anyone's personal life. It's just about what we all love, talking about family history and genealogy. So over to my lovely guest today. I'd like to introduce you to Kristin Rapinac from the Twisted Trees. Yeah. Kristin is from Nevada City in California, and I met Kristin at various Project Kin events over the last few months that we've both attended, and was very interested for her to come and chat with me for a few reasons. I found her stories just so interesting, and I love the way she writes. So I wanted to chat to her about that, how she became involved in family history, and there are so many answers to this question, and I love hearing them every time. So hello, Kristin. Welcome to Behind the Publication.
Hello, everybody.
And thank you so much for coming along today. Just as a starting point, could you just tell us a little about yourself?
Well, sure. So as far as family history and genealogy, I'm probably a newbie compared to a lot of you out there. I think I've been seriously doing this for about 3 years. And I've only recently, last fall, started actually writing down some of the stories. I do have a background in journalism and marketing, although this kind of writing's a little bit different. So I love the research part of it, but I also love the creative part, but it feels like it's sort of two different hats sometimes. So sometimes that's a struggle. I get really focused on one or the other. And that's I need to learn to multitask a little bit more.
Yeah. So I understand why I enjoy your writing now. I didn't realise you had been a journalist, so you're an experienced writer, and that comes through in your posts. It really does. So yes, yeah. So how long have you been? You said you've been writing your stories since about earlier last year. How long have you been researching?
I think it's been about 3 years. And so, I kind of had an event that where I started digging in. I had time finally, when you're busy, it's hard to get down to this research. And I started kind of looking into my father's father, and sort of went down that path and found this, really interesting story that we had never been told. And that's kind of how the ball started rolling.
Yeah.
And I do have, I have on my father came from a Croatian family, and my mother came from a all Norwegian family. Heads up to my cousin Al, who's from the Norwegian side of my family, and they're both wonderful families and have many interesting stories about perseverance. But I haven't written about except for my mother, my Norwegian side, but there are some really intriguing stories about them. But I've sort of been focused on the Croatian side lately and kind of going down. You can't just do everything at one time. So
no, absolutely, and that's what they say. I remember when I was a beginner researcher, going to a class and having them say, just concentrate on one line, just do one line.
But I will I will get there, because we have some amazing ancestors on our Norwegian.
Yeah, you will. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Including an Olympic competitor. So.
Oh wow. Okay, there's a little something I wasn't expecting to hear about. So yeah, we'll look forward to that. So did you get inspired by did you have a relative that was researching the family that nurtured you into it?
I would have to say my interest in genealogy, it was probably kindled when I was a kid. My dad, his name was Jim Rapinac. He grew up in northern Minnesota, in a town called Hibbing on the Iron Range, and he was mostly raised by his Croatian grandparents. His mother wasn't always around, so he was kind of his aunts and uncles and his grandmother especially, and the whole family kind of pitched in to supervise him, I guess. And he was a fabulous storyteller, much better than me as far as his oral storytelling skills. And he would tell these stories about his family and his cousins and his friends and all of his adventures and all the characters about Hibbing. And we lived outside of Minneapolis, so about 4 hours away. So, we weren't immersed in all of this. And he just loved genealogy. He even was the first in the family to, when he was serving in the Army, he went over to Croatia and met some of our cousins in Croatia and kept in touch with them his whole life. And then encouraged other family members. I have many other cousins who have visited Croatia after him. So he was sort of the genealogist and the storyteller in the family. And he just absolutely loved talking about his family. And I even have some of his paperwork. It was hard to do genealogy when my dad was around. There weren't all these online resources.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think I get it from him, and then it kind of lay dormant all these years. And then finally when I got around to it, and I really regret that I didn't, record my dad telling all these stories, because I can't even remember all of them. But the weird thing is, the one thing he talked about his, grandparents and all his cousins and aunts and uncles, and he never talked about his father. So I knew nothing about my grandfather on that side for a long time, and that's sort of what kindled, kind of sparked 3 years
ago. Mystery. Yeah.
Yes. So
have you done research into him?
Yes. So, kind of to go back, when I was a kid, we would go up to Hibbing. We would drive up to Hibbing and visit all of my family on both sides, the Rapinac side, and then we had my Umtivit Norwegian side as well. And but the Rapinacs were so much different than the Norwegian side of my family. They were loud and boisterous and always talking and hugging and so affectionate and kissing me. And, I think I was take after the Norwegian side of my family. So I was always a little overwhelmed whenever I would go up there, but they
Yeah.
were very, very entertaining. And then my Nana, that's my dad's mother, my grandmother, she lived in California, and she came to visit us a few times and would stay with our family. And I was just so in awe of her. She was tall and elegant and always wore these wool suits and furs. And when we picked her up from the airport, she had all her hat boxes, and she always smelled like Chanel No. 5. And, and she eventually opened a ballet school, and she wanted me to be this tall, elegant ballerina, and that wasn't to be. So I did write a story about her sort of ballet career. But anyway, on one of these trips when my grandmother came to visit us, my Nana, she started talking about, the love of her life, and he was just, this wonderful man, and, she had lost the love of her life, and, I was only 10, and I finally figured out she was talking about my dad's father. So later on, I got up the courage and I asked my dad about his father, and he would only give us a few brief things. He just said he was in prison. He and my grandmother were never married. Just a few little things. He was the son of a powerful man in Hibbing, and just a few little things, and that he had died, fairly young. So that's all I knew, and he did tell us his name, but I didn't even know how to spell it. So that's kind of where that was. And then fast forward to my dad. After my dad passed, I ended up, with a tote box of photos, and a lot of them were from my Nana's collection. And they were, just photos of, her. You probably can't see these, but,
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Beautiful photos. I don't have them now, but of her in her ballet tutus, and, photos of my dad as a youngster. And what was interesting about him is when you flip them over, she wrote all these intriguing things, little scraps, of information about, here, Jimmy was born while Dad was at Stillwater prison, car accident, marriage had to be anyway, all of the photos have these very cryptic notes on the back that sort of paint this sketchy picture of what happened between her and my dad's father. And so I never really knew what that was about. So I ended up getting obtaining, I got prison records, I got court records, probate records. I'm trying to think, let's see, trial transcripts, I got judgments, death certificates, my dad's birth certificate. I had all these documents, hundreds and hundreds of pages really, to try to piece together of what happened between, my Nana and my dad's father. And it's a crazy story. It is absolutely, it's not the little piece that my dad told me. It was the sensational trial. They called it the trial of the decade. It had to be, because of all the publicity, the venue had to be changed from Hibbing to Virginia, which is, I don't know, maybe hour away, I don't know. The best lawyers in the county kind of duked it out. The trial, even with the venue change, was packed every day. They ended up exhuming the body of the victim near the end of the trial. It was just this crazy trial. And in the meantime, my Nana, who was, pregnant with my father, was banished from the family home and sent to Duluth to a home for unwed mothers, a convent really. And anyway, so after getting all these documents, I kind of pieced together what happened. And that sort of got me kind of hooked on that was a whopper of a story. But that's what got me hooked. And at the end, there is, as in all of my family, this story ends with a major twist. The story that I just told you, as if that wasn't enough. There's another twist that I won't even go into
Yeah.
right
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll look forward to reading that one.
Yeah.
So I'm not really surprised that that's how you got into all this, because how could you not after
Yeah.
reading that? But it just shows, doesn't it? We this is what we're doing with writing our family stories. We're leaving them for those who can come behind us. So they've got the information at their hand that we had to search hard to find. And how incredible that just those little snippets of sentences have enabled you to build such a huge story.
Right. And I think, some people say, well, what, has your opinion of your Nana changed? And, she was a difficult woman, actually, but I actually think I have much more sympathy and compassion for her.
Yeah.
Knowing the story, and I don't judge. You cannot judge your ancestors, because no one knows. It was a different time. No one knows what was going on. We're not there to judge. And so I feel that, I think I learned more about her, and I feel actually a lot of compassion, and I understand actually why she was the way she was, and also why my dad was the way he was.
Absolutely.
He carried a lot of pain because of this situation with his father.
Yes, the stories definitely help us understand, don't they? Our ancestors. I know you said about your dad. I know with my dad, he was a good dad, but there were things about him I never really understood. Why he sort of thought that way or acted that way, and it wasn't until years. Till I started researching when I was about 35, I think. So it wasn't until then. I always knew that my dad was an orphan, but that's all I knew. I didn't know. For some reason in the family, we never talked about that.
Didn't talk about it.
No, I didn't. We didn't even ask, like, Dad, why did your parents die? How did they die? Or it just wasn't ever mentioned. So when I started researching and found out all that, I could understand why he was the way he was. His life experiences and what he didn't experience in his life also. So, doing this research and writing the stories does help us understand our ancestors. And your Nana, she was a great ancestor to leave you all that information, wasn't she?
Well, I think she was very clever, because if she had written all these notes in an actual diary, and maybe she had, my dad would have pitched them. But
exactly.
You can't throw away all these photos. So
no, that's
she was very clever. She didn't tell us. I'm just going to tell you, she didn't tell us everything. She left out a bit.
She left a snail trail for you.
Yeah. But I think, it's very interesting to to learn about. And I also learned about, this whole spurred my interest in other stories, surrounding this family and the rest of my family. And I found one, not even related to this story, just wonderful stories that you pick up all along the way that really give you insights into your ancestors. For example, my great-grandmother, she was just the rock of the family. And so many things I've discovered have just shown how wonderful she was. And she was, a strict mother, but I think she really held that family together. And I found some amusing, interesting things about my great-grandfather, who he was a very hardworking miner, and he was a great father, but he was a bootlegger for a while and got arrested multiple times for that. And as many of them did back then. So there's a lot of other stories.
So your great-grandparents were in the US, were they?
They were in the US. They had both immigrated. They got married in Croatia, and then they had their first child in Croatia, and then they moved to northern Minnesota. And I think about the migration stories that
Yeah.
people are starting to talk about. And my great grandmother immigrated the year after my great grandfather. So she had I think,
Wow.
5-month-old baby. She took a 5-month-old baby in 1906 on, in steerage on one of those ships. And as far as
Yeah.
I can tell, I don't even know if she went with anybody. I can't find
Yeah. Yeah.
anyone else from her hometown. And that's just what our ancestors did was just amazing. So,
It is amazing. Think of us doing that ourselves today,
mhm,
with everything that we have with a 5-month-old baby.
mhm.
We'd be stressed, wouldn't we? you know?
Just a little, especially in those
um,
conditions. No first class down in
no, you can't
our
imagine.
ancestors.
Yeah, what it must have taken to make that decision.
Hmm.
So, it just makes you realise what they were looking forward to,
Hmm.
what they were hoping was coming up in their life ahead when they got to their destination. So I should mention that you mentioned migration stories, which I love migration
Hmm.
stories. I really do. And Barbara at Project Kin's doing a migration series in September. So just a heads up, everyone, get your migration stories
Oh
ready.
yeah, I'll
Yeah,
tell this
yeah,
one. Right.
yeah, this sounds like a great one. Yeah, yeah. So you wrote a story about your mum,
Yeah.
and honestly, that was just so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Um, there were tears.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Oh gosh. Yeah. So my mother died. Oh gosh, the time goes so fast. A year and a half ago, maybe. And yeah, it's a very difficult time for anybody, the last days
Yeah,
of someone's life. And we just shared, you'll have to read the story, but my sister and I
yeah,
just shared this amazing moment, just filled with, from the depths of grief to, in a very emotional moment to, hysterical laughter, just from one second to the other, and how cleansing that was, and how
yeah,
much that brought us all together. And the
yeah,
chaplain that we were working with was so wonderful, and so I
yeah,
I will always treasure that memory. And it's been
yeah,
hard. I still haven't been able to write much about my mother. I do want to write about her and her family. And she had three wonderful sisters. One is still alive, and um, she was beautiful. She was sweet. She was the homecoming queen. She was beautiful up
yeah,
until the end, even. So it's
yeah.
hard though. It's really hard sometimes to write.
Well, absolutely. And I think sometimes you just need that passage of time in
Hmm.
between. But what amazed me about this story was you wrote this story about the last day of her life.
Hmm.
And I just thought how incredible for you to be able to write that. It was really just, and from memory, I think that was your first Substack
It
post.
was my first one. Yeah, I just sat down and it just came.
Yeah.
So it was called The Last Laugh. If anybody wants to
Yes, the
read it.
last laugh. I'll pop a link to it
Oh,
in the notes,
great.
because definitely go and read it. It's just an absolutely
Oh,
beautiful
thank
legacy for your mother. Yes, yeah, yeah. Um, and that post showed me like how well you write, and you don't write. I noticed in your next couple of posts, I write facts because I'm not a writer. So I'm leaving information behind for,
you.
all those descendants that crowd in that want to know everything. So my posts are mostly facts. There are not many stories in our family, and I'm not that good at creating stories. But you create your stories in such a way you don't present the facts, but the facts are obvious. Like it's obvious in reading a story what the time is, or the time and the place, and without you having to just hit it as a fact. And I just think that's a great talent. So
Oh, thank
yeah,
you, thank you. Yeah, I think when
yeah,
the reason I didn't do genealogy before, I thought, oh, it's just all about, you know, names and dates and,
yeah,
whose kids
yeah,
belong to
yeah,
who. And I really, think the journalist in me really loves, the stories and the
Yeah.
good and the bad, and it's all part of our human makeup.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. I think when we first start, I remember back to when I first started, I think, I've got to collect as many names as I can and fill in all those dates. And, we don't really worry all that much. Or I didn't really think of the stories. It was just all about how many greats or greats or greats have I got, and, or just all the facts. And then, as we go on, we realise those facts are just pointers towards really great stories.
yes.
So, yeah.
And I have been chasing that a little bit. I have to admit, I have tried to go up my on my Norwegian side. It's actually other people before me have filled that in pretty well, which is great. On my Croatian side, however, it kind of ended with my great grandparents. So I have been able to find, I think, my second and third great grandparents. I just found, like literally last week, my great grandmother's father, confirmed him. And,
is that Norwegian?
No, sorry, that's actually he was Slovenian.
Okay.
On the Norwegian side, it's quite, other people have done work ahead for that.
Yeah.
And which is wonderful. They had great records in Norway, so
yeah.
I have a lot of that. But I did find something interesting, and maybe I was never aware of this community before, but my ancestors in Slovenia and Croatia, many of them descend from this German enclave that was in Slovenia for 600 years.
Oh,
and they're called I might pronounce this wrong, the Goches. Goche is the region, and the people are called Gocher. If I might be totally butchering that name. And so it's a very interesting history, and we're there for like the 1300s, and they kind of, they did somewhat intermarry with the Slovenians, but they kept their language. Their German kind of evolved over time, so it wasn't even comparable to the Germans. But I thought that was really cool. And there's the society, and there's all these people who follow this specific genealogy. And in World War II, this whole community in Slovenia, I mean, it was, I don't know, at one point it was maybe 20 or 30, I think, thousand, and it had dwindled. But they basically, during World War II, because they were considered German, they lost homeland.
Persecuted,
And so they were, eventually just pretty much, it's a long story, but they were pretty much scattered to the rest of the world. So their community still exists, but they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
So
how amazing to have. Yeah, absolutely, because how amazing to have a story like that too. And if you love learning, what a learning experience to learn about that community.
Yeah, we're going there, and we are going to Croatia to visit some of my cousins. The cousins that my dad first met, the descendants back in 1950, whatever.
Oh,
and I've also found a couple other cousins online. And then we'll also visit Slovenia. So I'm sort of following a little bit late, but I'm following in my dad's footsteps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then we'll have to go to Norway and Sweden and the other places.
Yeah. How wonderful. It's one of the great things about genealogy, the friends you make and family that you make around the world, And you've got these people scattered all over the world now from this community in Croatia.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You might even have some in Australia.
I do, actually. I've been contacted.
Do you?
There were Croatians. There were Croatians who migrated to Australia.
Yes.
I have.
Because I can remember at school that we had, migration goes in waves. You've got your after the Second World War, and then we had later on after the Vietnam War, the Vietnamese. But I remember when I was young at school that there were a lot of Croatian kids, and their families were there working on orchards, and So if you come, and if you have any of your relatives in my town,
okay, I can't remember.
So no, that's great. Just before we go, you did mention in one of your posts that you're planning on writing a book. Is that still in the wind?
So I think that, the story that I just told you, including some of the backstory, I'm not sure how far back I'll go because I found some very interesting stories further back.
Yeah.
But I do. But the problem, I actually started it and I did the outline and I started the first few chapters. And then and then the research completely changed everything.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, well, I got to wait until, I still have a few loose ends to tie up.
Yeah.
Because every time I thought I knew the story, everything changed. And that's really what happened with this. So I don't know if I'll, I thought I was going to write a book and I might still, but, maybe I'll do it on Substack too. I haven't quite decided the best.
Yeah. And all those little changes that came along will only make the story more interesting anyway.
Right. Yeah.
And your Substack posts could be, like a basis for a book down the track,
Right. I've seen other people have done that.
Yeah, there's people doing that, isn't there? Yeah.
So I'll have to talk to, I know there's some people out there who've done series posts. And
Oh, Kristin, it's just been so interesting to talk to you. The story of your family is just really interesting, and I'm looking forward to reading more of your posts when you get that research, a bit more clear into your head. And so I'm sure you're going to write some wonderful stories there for us.
Thank you. Yeah, I will start again. I've kind of been on hiatus, and I had a surgery and then doing some research, but I will start posting again very soon. And in the meantime, I so enjoy it. There's so many talented writers in this community and talented research, and I just enjoy and cheering everybody on too.
Isn't it great? All those posts we get to read. I just love it. I just disappear for hours reading.
Amazing stories. And
there really are. Yeah. As yours have been today. So first, can I just thank everybody for coming along? It's just so great to see you coming along to support Kristin. And pop over and visit her on the Twisted Trees and show her some love by liking and sharing. And it's what we all do here on Substack, and we do it so well, the genealogy community. So I'm sure Kristin would appreciate you popping in to say hello. So thank you for coming along and chatting to us today and being so open about your stories. It's just been absolutely wonderful to talk to you, Kristin. I'll say before we go, next month our guest here on Behind the Publication is Mama Carol. So, really looking forward to meeting Mama Carol also and hearing a bit more about her story. So, yes, we'll say goodbye now. So, goodbye, everyone, and thank you so much for coming along again. And bye-bye, Kristin, and thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Okay, see you later. Bye.